So ever since I started this channel last week, I have been hit one thing after the next with attack after attack after attack with the enemy. So there's two choices I could do with it, right? I could give up or I can press forward and persevere. So I'm choosing the latter. I'm going to press forward and persevere. Because prior to this, as I was sharing with you guys on the last couple of videos, was that, I had no peace. I had no rest. I wasn't walking in or fulfilling my purpose, what the Lord was asking me to do. And this is one of the purposes he's asking me. So I'm like, great, man, I'm going to start feeling some peace. I'm going to start feeling some rest. And I'm going to be honest with you, it's been anything but peace or rest. But that's how I know that something good's coming from this and that people are going to be inspired by this, because when you are doing the Lord's work, he's going to put on a full court press, especially at the very beginning. And it's up to us and myself in the moment with what I'm doing, if I'm going to fold or if I'm going to continue to march forward. So I welcome the attacks. I'm just going to change my mindset. I'm not going to get physically fatigued. I'm going to keep pressing forward, and that's what we're going to do. So today is mindset. It is so important. So when you accept Jesus Christ into your life, and you bring him in, he's your Lord and Savior, this has changed. This heart, you're given a new heart of flesh. He takes that heart of stone, that hard rock, and he replaces it with his heart right here. So you are born again. But this right up here isn't changed, in between the ears. This is a battleground right here. And there's war going on. And when you accept Jesus and you're already having the battlefield of the mind, guess what? It just intensifies. Because when you're doing the Lord's work, he comes in, like I said, full court press on you. And it's challenging. It gets challenging at times, but that's where you got to lean in, and not on your own strength, but the Lord's strength. And I'm learning that right now. I've been trying to battle it the last few days on my own strength, and I'm physically and mentally exhausted. My wife and I had a good conversation last night, which are very necessary in life. Being able to communicate and be able to have those hard conversations about pressing forward. So that's what we did. And today is a new day, and we're going to rock it out. So mindset. I had a conversation with my kids last night about this. I said, what do you think of yourself? Like, where's your mindset at? What do you think? Is the first thing you think of positive, or is it negative? Only you can answer that truthfully. I don't need to know it. You just need to get honest and real with yourself. Is it positive or negative when you see yourself, when you think of yourself? That was one of the things I asked them. And they kind of looked at me and they pondered for a minute and they gave me their answer. And there's no right or wrong with it. It's just, where are you at? What's your mindset? What are you fixated on? Because whatever you perceive becomes your reality. Doesn't mean that it's truth, but whatever you perceive is your reality. And it's very important to keep your mind strengthened. There's a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. There's two different mindsets. A fixed mindset is one that does not grow. It stays in its comfort zone. It doesn't believe that it can do anything but what it's doing at the moment. And a growth mindset accepts challenges, perseveres, is resilient, and continues to press forward. So you have to ask yourself, which one are you? Are you a fixed mindset? Or are you a growth mindset? And you have the choice to change it. Hey, maybe you're a fixed mindset, but that doesn't mean you got to stay there. But you just got to believe that you can do something different with your life. You got to believe in yourself. I had a conversation with one of my sons last night about confidence, being confident in who he is. He's 15 years old right now. And all of you know who have been 15 and you're older now, that's a very, very strange age where you're going through life and you're meeting people and you're trying to figure out who you are. And hopefully you get your identity in Christ and not through others. But, we do want to be liked. We do want to be loved. We do want to be accepted. So sometimes we will bend who we are to please others. And I was just telling them, just make sure you're true to yourself, because the most important thing is this, you never deviate from who you are. God created you to be you and only you, nobody else. So quit trying to be somebody else and just be you. Don't try to, because the most exhausting thing you'll ever do in your life is blend in and then try to be somebody you're not to please other people, or other people wanting you to do something with your life that might not align with what you want, but you do it to keep the peace, but there's no peace for you. So you just got to ask yourself, are you on a trajectory you want to be on, or are you on a trajectory that somebody else wants you on? Because if you're on a trajectory where somebody else wants you on, your mindset is always going to be in the gutter. You're not going to have any peace. You're not going to have any rest. So I just encourage you to start developing a growth mindset. Be true to who you are and who God created you to be. Find your identity in Christ and not another person. I had to, at a time, I was getting my identity through my wife. Like I didn't realize it, but it was a thing that the Lord brought to my attention. As I loved her so much, and I hurt her in so many different ways through my addiction. I never wanted to hurt her again. So I was always trying to serve her, always trying to please her. And, and I dealt with the fear of losing her. And dude, she would have left me a long time ago if she was going to. She's not going to leave me now. It was just a lie I bought into with the enemy. So I'm just telling you, everything's about the mindset. Where's your mind at? So if you have a negative mindset, guess what? It's probably been years of practice. So guess what it's going to take? It's going to take some time. It's going to take consistency over and over and over again to develop a different mindset. So, over time, I remember in my mindset when it became so negative in my addiction that I lacked compassion. I developed apathy. I was very callous. I was a flatliner. I had no emotion towards things. I mean, anybody could probably die, and I probably wouldn't even have showed any type of emotion whatsoever, because that's just where I was. Numb, little hope, discouraged, a ton of negative thinking. And there were times where I could be highly emotional. So it could flip-flop from being a flatliner to exploding. Highly emotional could be rage, anger, frustration. And these were all these traits that I had to come to terms with, that I had developed. And I didn't like any of those traits. But man, we have to realize we have choices to make in life. What choice are you making today is going to shape who you are tomorrow. You can always undo things for the most part. But the most important thing, man, you don't always have to be apathetic. You can be empathetic. You just got to develop a different mindset. You might be discouraged, but this is why I created this channel, Courage to be a Champion. You got to start believing in something. It's so important to have clarity in your life. And that's what I'm finding now in my life, clarity. So I have a set that I'm focused on. Like, what am I fighting for? What am I taking risks for? What clear-cut answer or do I have in my life that I'm working towards? We as men, we're built to lead, right? And there's a time where I wasn't leading. And, there's sometimes where I'm not leading and my wife has to take over, and it's not meant for her. But, these characteristics that the Lord showed me the other day about leading, most importantly is the clarity, which I was telling you. You got to have a clear-cut vision of what you are chasing, what you're going after, what you're envisioning, what you're fighting for. And most importantly is composure. As I mentioned earlier, I could be highly emotional or a flatliner, and neither one are good. So learning to develop composure, being calm in stressful situations. Calm, cool, collected are the 3 C's he gave me about composure. So when things hit the fan, guess what? Man, this is not focus on the problem, but focus on a solution. Because, negative people focus on the problem. Positive people are very go-getters. They focus on solutions, and that's it. You either focus on the problem or solution. Which one are you focusing on? If you're focusing on the problem, you better start looking at the solution, because all you're going to do is add more issues, and you're always going to have more problems if you don't learn how to solve them. Most important out of all these is integrity. Integrity is key. When I was in my addiction, integrity was the furthest thing from me, because I lied about everything. There was nothing about me that had any type of integrity. And, one of the things the Lord showed me is integrity. Be true to who you are, man. Do the right thing, even when nobody's looking. It's easy to do the right thing when everybody's around looking at you. But what are you doing in your downtime? What are you doing when nobody's looking? Do you have integrity? That's the most important thing. Can God trust you to do the right things? Because he knows everything. And then perseverance. Perseverance is key. You just stand fast. No matter what's going on, you stand fast. You know what you're fighting for. And you just keep pressing forward. No matter what hits you, man, no matter what obstacle comes in your way, you just keep cruising forward. You got that on cruise control and you're cruising forward. Nothing's stopping you. You're not going in neutral or reverse. You're just continually flowing forward. You know, the one thing I had a conversation with my kids last night is being intentional. Intentional is key in life. Being where your feet are. You know, a lot of us are stuck in the past, and there's a lot of us that are stuck in the future. We're thinking so far ahead that we're not in the moment. And life's passing us by. I don't know where you're at in life, but I got 4 kids. My youngest is 12 years old. And I have a daughter who's just about to move out in another week and a half, 2 weeks. One kid, he's in the Marines. So he's not even around here. He's in Hawaii, you know, and I have a 15-year-old son who's got 3 years left. So the clock's ticking. And I realize I have not been intentional with my time. So it's very, very important that I start learning how to be intentional. Because the last thing I want is to not be intentional and they grow up and they want nothing to do with me or us as a family, you know. And I was talking with my wife last night about creating memories. So the next 3 years that I got left with my son, and I told him this last night, we're going to start creating memories. We're going to start doing things, whether that's traveling or whatnot, just hanging out and enjoying each other's company. You know, being able to let them confide in me, you know, putting away my stresses. You know, the most important thing is not letting my stress overcome me and it's showing. You know, this is where composure kicks in. I got to be able to handle stress better. So being intentional, being where my feet are. If it's sitting down and watching a movie with them, sit down and watch a movie with them. If it's having a conversation at dinner, have a conversation at dinner with them. But whatever you do, put away everything because, man, life is short and the time passes us by. And the last thing you want to do is have any type of regrets. So that's what I'm working on right now is being intentional. But the most important thing is, man, is enjoy life. Like, joy is one of the fruits of the Spirit. And there's been times where the enemy's taken my joy. But life is so short, tomorrow's never promised. Quit letting the enemy run your life, taking your joy, taking your peace, and, you know, keeping you distracted from what you have in front of you. You know, if God blessed you with a beautiful family, enjoy that beautiful family. Whatever God blessed you with, enjoy it. Quit being distracted by the ways of the world or problems of the world. Like, yes, there are always going to be problems, but that's why I was talking earlier about solutions. Just focus on solutions, man. Situations do arise. What does your composure look like? Do you freak out? You know, I used to be DEFCON 5, and I still kind of have those type of moments, but I'm learning because you know what? I've got to train my kids, my 2 boys, to be men. And the most importantly, if I'm going to tell them to do something, I have to make sure I'm following through with it. Am I going to be perfect? 100% I'm not. No way. But as I mentioned to them when I had a conversation with them, is being accountable. When you're wrong, you're wrong. When you're not doing right, you're not. And own it. And I did. I owned a lot of things last night with them. There's some things that I need to clean up. There's some things I want to change. There's some things I want to do better at and be better at. But the most important thing is I can talk all day long. What are my actions aligning to? So moving forward, I got to make sure everything I've said that I'm following through with it. As I mentioned, nope, I'm not perfect, but progression is key, right? So mindset, get into a growth mindset. Get out of that fixed mindset. Quit staying in your comfort zone. Get out of that comfort zone. The most important thing is get comfortable with being uncomfortable because anytime you're doing the Lord's work, you're never going to be comfortable. So be intentional, have a growth mindset, you know, have composure. That's super key, but most importantly, have integrity. Say what you mean what you say, and own it, all right? But know where you're at, be honest with where you're at, and start doing things differently. Because there's peace, man, when you're in the Lord's rest. There's peace there. Even when it don't feel like it, you're still abiding in his peace. So I hope this blessed you today. I hope you guys have a happy 4th, and we'll talk soon. Take care.